From a source somewhere, man arrived on this planet, complete with the instincts to help him survive. All the animals have instincts, just so that they can survive. This is Beth Wee in the Koinonia Kitchen, and we're talking about step 4 today, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. You know, the 12 and 12 of Alcoholics Anonymous says that creation gave us instincts for a purpose. And that word creation calls to mind some source, some higher power, some creator of everything. And these instincts were designed to help us thrive, not just live, but live well. Though not addressed directly in the book Alcoholics Anonymous, the first instinctive drive is for survival. And for many that find their way to 12-step recovery, this instinct has become warped. Most alcoholics and drug addicts, most people that are really suffering under the compulsive reign of terror, have found themselves in a stance where they just didn't care if they lived or died. I'm not saying they were suicidal. They just didn't care if it was their last day on earth. That stance is unnatural. The desire to survive is expected and fundamental, but addiction and compulsion distorts even this base instinct. In the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, they talk about the instincts, and I call them the 3 S's. The instinct for sex relation, the instinct for material and emotional security, and they call it companionship. I'm going to say your place in society. So as we move forward in this podcast, I'm going to call them the 3 S's: sex, security, and society. And I believe that understanding these instincts is the crux of making this inventory fearless and going thorough, being searching. Because once you see that you have been powerfully driven by instincts, you will see why you did the things you did. So we have to remember, of course, that instincts are God-given to all humans have them. And so do the animals. Just like a blue jay in Indiana is going to make the same shaped nest as a blue jay in Florida. Blue jays are wired to make a nest that looks a certain way. Okay, so the things with which they make the nest might be different. But the nest itself, a birder, somebody who's really good with birds will look at a nest and say, oh, that's from a blue jay. Because blue jays are instinctively driven to create a nest that's perfect for their species. There isn't a human being without one of these instinctive drives. There's nobody who is non-sexual. They may choose to be non-sexual, but they were born with a sex drive. They may deny it or turn it off, but it was in them when they were created. There is a security need. They may not be driven by money or emotional security, but it is in them. They were created knowing that security feels good. There is an instinct for social, and you might tell me, no, not me. I don't like being around people. That is a social instinct going to the opposite end of the spectrum. Everyone has these instincts. They were God-given, and they were supposed to create a natural order or a balance. Sadly, the same material security instinct, for example, can produce a miser or a spendthrift. It's the same sex instinct that produces promiscuity and prudishness. It's the same social instinct that moves a person to be outgoing or standoffish. The pendulum swings plus, minus, and as it swings, the instincts get out of whack. So what is step 4 really about? We want to find out how, when, and where these natural instincts have warped us. That's what we mean when we say we want to look at our record. A record for an athlete is going to tell you how many wins and losses they've had. A record for a criminal is only going to tell you about the losses. In step 4, we want to look at our losses through understanding how extreme we went in our attempts to win. How? How were our instincts involved? When? When did this happen? Was it a one-time occurrence, or has the drive to get these instincts met become a force in your life and in your relationships? Where? Where were you when this instinct went to the extreme? Where were we and what was happening in our lives back then? How, when, and where did my emotions become deformed? Deformed is in the dictionary just says misshapen, not having a normal or natural shape. I'm not pointing a finger at your emotions. I'm just saying, how did this happen? How did I get myself to a place where I have to inventory where my instincts got out of whack? We learned that the effectiveness of the whole program rests on how well we practice step 3. Well, in step 4, we better understand that statement, because it says that a faith that really works in daily living will be out of reach until we practice step 3 and move into step 4. It's funny, we need to practice before we get good at something, and a moral inventory is going to help us improve our 3rd step efforts. We are going to make that decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understand Him. Sex, security, society. These are the tickets to understanding our wrongdoings of the past. Look for these words: sex desire, material and emotional security, standing in the community, financial security, power mad. You'll find these words all throughout the AA literature, because it says that whenever a human being becomes a battleground for the instincts, you're not going to find that serenity to accept the things you cannot change. It warns us that we should look to see how instincts run wild is the underlying cause of our problem and our compulsion. So let me ask you a question. Are you depressive or grandiose? It's important to know, because those are the 2 people that can get you back into the bad shape you were in, the poor me or the great I am. I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but most of ourselves vacillate between egomania and inferiority. So let's let the idea be planted so that you can see how many decisions you make and thoughts you consider in response to meet one of these instinctive drives. A lot of people would like to get out of doing step 4. They like to blame other people and deflect whatever went wrong in their life on other people, because we want to blind ourselves to what is wrong with us. As long as we don't see it, we don't have to deal with it. But blame contends that you're not accountable for your actions, and that you only acted because somebody else was in the way of getting your needs met. The lack of accountability for someone's actions will keep a person from lasting happiness. Everyone has to take responsibility for their own shortcomings. When we're self-justifying, we're just making up excuses. They might explain some of the bad behavior you had and try to cover some of the damaging conduct you've been part of. But saying it's not my fault is not true. You might be able to get away with it wasn't intentional, but I didn't do that. I'm sorry, it's part of your record. Some people come to me when they're getting started on step 4 and they say, why do I have to write it down? Can't I just do it in my head? But the reality is, what you put on paper not only affirms that you want something to change, it's tangible evidence that you want to be accountable for yourself. But it also gives you a way to expand on one thought. Something might come out of the pen and all of a sudden, boom, boom, boom. You'll be able to expand on it and understand yourself even better. Selfishness, self-centeredness, that's what we're going to see when we do this fourth step. That's the cause of our character defects. We just want it our way. The Frank Sinatra song, I Did It My Way, that's our tune until we take a fourth step. We want to find out more about ourselves. How did selfishness and self-centeredness change the way we think and affect the things we were willing to do? We want to find the truth behind our actions. And there's 3 ways the fourth step teaches us to find these truths. The first one, we're going to write about our resentments. The number 1 offender, the book calls it. Break the word down. Re means to do over. Sent is the root from the Latin that means to feel. Why are resentments the number 1 offender? Why do they tear us apart? Because we re-feel bad stuff over and over and over. The second thing we're going to look at in a fourth step is our fears. Fear is like an evil, corroding thread going through the tapestry of your life. It sets trains of circumstances in motion. We get afraid and we act on it. And then all of a sudden we're 3 days later still trying to cover up how afraid we were by lying, cheating, manipulating, doing the things that we're going to write down in this fourth step. What's driving your train? Is it a fear that one of these instinctive needs will not be met? That always shows up in a fourth step. Sex, security, society. Which one did we fear we would lose, or fear that we wouldn't get our share of? The third thing we're going to write about is our sex. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, and inconsiderate when it came to our sex lives? Where were we at fault? What should we have done instead? Sex relations seem to bring up shame for many people seeking recovery. Tell your brain to shut up and get the information down on paper. The embarrassment might be indicating that you were thinking of yourself, and that now you have to write it down and people will see that you were only thinking of yourself. And take a deep breath and remember, self-seeking behavior is the function of the thinking that got you doing the 12 steps in the first place. Compulsive behavior, addiction, it makes us think only of self. You're not a bad person. You're a sick person trying to get well. Write the information down and be done with it once and for all. For many of us, this activity is so important to change future relationships. The work leads to one of the upcoming promises ensured that you will be able to look the world in the eye, and you'll be able to be alone at perfect peace and ease. Write it down. How are you going to write it down? Well, the big book has a layout that works really well. I recommend a spiral composition book, and just for this alone, don't use that composition book on your vacation this year to take notes on what you got to see. This is a 4-step composition book. If it's your first time working the steps, it might take a lot of pages. There might be a lot of writing. But as you repeat this in either an annual housekeeping or just at different times during your new life, there may be less writing. Be searching and thorough no matter what, because I promise you the payoff is really great for when you get this done fully. We're going to start with resentments. We're going to move right into fears, and then we're going to sum up the sex problem. That's how you do the 4th step. If you listen to the next podcast, part 2 of it, we'll go into each one of those categories a little bit more in depth so that you know what to write about and how to do it. But the biggest thing, you're taking a self-inventory. That means if you're not happy with where you're at right now, you're inventorying how you got there. And the best news is, it's the first step in changing. Stay tuned. It's time to take addiction out of the shadows and shine the encouraging light of recovery on everyone affected. Good Seed Podcast is powered by BethWE.com, a nonprofit ministry based in Vero Beach, Florida. We'll start the uncomfortable conversations that turn despair into hope and complacency into action. Connect, communicate, and thrive with us. Check us out online at BethWE.com. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk again soon.